In the winter of 1959, 9 experienced hikers entered the Ural Mountains. None would return alive. What happened at the Dyatlov Pass remains one of history's most terrifying unsolved mysteries. The vast, unforgiving wilderness of the Ural Mountains in the heart of Soviet Russia is a place of profound silence and stark, brutal beauty. In the winter of 1959, this desolate landscape was chosen as the backdrop for a challenging expedition by a group of 9 experienced ski hikers from the Ural Polytechnical Institute. Led by the seasoned Igor Dyatlov, the team was a collection of bright, resilient young men and women, all certified Grade 2 hikers with ambitions of achieving the coveted Grade 3 certification on this very trek. Their goal was the formidable Otorten Mountain, a name that in the local Mansi language ominously means, "Don't go there." They were well-equipped, high-spirited, and possessed a deep respect for the unforgiving nature they were about to challenge. Their journals and photographs from the initial days of the expedition paint a picture of camaraderie and youthful optimism, a stark contrast to the grim tableau that awaited discovery. They were utterly unaware that their journey into the pristine, snow-covered expanse was a final march towards a mystery that would baffle investigators and haunt the public consciousness for decades to come, an enigma etched into the very fabric of the frozen peaks. The silence of the mountains was about to be broken, not by their triumphant cheers, but by the echoes of their final terrifying moments. Their planned route was ambitious, a testament to their skill and endurance, promising to test their limits against the raw power of nature. Each member was an expert in their own right, from the robust Semyon Zolotaryov, the eldest and most mysterious of the group, to the vibrant and well-liked Zenaida Kolmogorova. The early stages of their journey were documented with a casual sense of adventure, filled with snapshots of smiling faces against a backdrop of endless white. They built makeshift shelters, sang songs around crackling fires, and meticulously chronicled their progress, their entries filled with technical details and personal reflections. There was no hint of discord, no sign of the impending doom that lingered just beyond the next ridge. The group's confident advance into the wild was a portrait of human determination, a bold statement of their ability to conquer the harshest of environments. Yet the mountain they sought to tame held its own ancient secrets, a dormant malevolence that cared little for their preparations or their courage. The very air, thin and sharp with cold, seemed to hold a bated breath, waiting for the precise moment to unleash an incomprehensible horror upon the unsuspecting trekkers. The deeper they ventured, the further they strayed from the world of logic and reason, stepping into a domain governed by older, more sinister rules. The turning point, the moment their adventurous trek veered into a desperate struggle for survival, occurred on the slopes of Kolatshakal, the Mountain of the Dead. On the night of February 1st, they pitched their tent in a location that seemed, by all accounts, a poor choice for experienced hikers. It was exposed on a windswept slope, rather than in the more sheltered forest area just over a mile away. Why they made this decision remains one of the incident's most persistent and troubling questions. Was it a simple miscalculation, a lapse in judgment brought on by fatigue? Or was it a choice forced upon them by something unseen? Inside the tent, they prepared for the brutal night, sharing a meal and likely preparing their bedrolls for the sub-zero temperatures. Their final photograph, a blurry, chaotic image taken from within, captures a flash of light, a strange orb that seems to hang in the darkness. It's a haunting final glimpse into their last moments of relative peace before an unknown and terrifying force ripped their sanctuary and their lives apart. The tranquility of the evening was a fragile veneer, soon to be shattered by an event so violent and bizarre that it would leave their camp a scene of utter chilling desolation. The ensuing chaos was absolute. In the dead of night, something compelled the 9 hikers to abandon the relative safety of their tent with frantic urgency. The canvas, their only shield against the elements, was not unzipped or untied, but slashed and ripped open from the inside. This single violent act speaks volumes of their terror. They fled, not bothering to gather essential gear or even their boots, plunging into the deep snow and bone-chilling temperatures of -30 degrees Celsius, wearing little more than their sleeping attire. What could provoke such a primal, panicked flight? What horror could be so immediate and overwhelming that facing a frozen wasteland barefoot seemed the better alternative? The tracks they left in the snow told a story of a controlled, if hurried, descent towards the nearby forest line. They moved not as a scattered, panicked mob, but as a group, walking side by side, suggesting they were retreating from a common threat, a shared, unspeakable terror that had descended upon their isolated camp on the mountain slope. The scene they left behind was one of eerie stillness. The abandoned tent, a tattered monument to their sudden and inexplicable departure into the deadly embrace of the Siberian night. The search party that finally reached the desolate campsite weeks later was met with a scene of profound and disturbing mystery. The tent, partially collapsed under the weight of fresh snow, stood as a silent, grim sentinel. Inside, their belongings remained neatly arranged. Boots, warm clothing, supplies, and even their money were all untouched. This immediately ruled out robbery as a motive. The only thing missing was the hikers themselves. The trail of footprints leading away from the tent was a perplexing clue. The prints, some from bare feet, others from socks or a single boot, descended methodically towards the tree line. There was no evidence of a struggle, no sign of any other individuals or animals having approached the camp. It was as if the hikers had calmly, yet with great urgency, walked away from their only shelter to face a certain death in the brutal cold. The searchers stood baffled, surrounded by a pristine wilderness that held its secrets close. The silence of the mountain was deafening, offering no explanation for the abandoned camp, no clue to the fate of the 9 souls who had vanished into its icy grasp. The scene was a perfect contradiction, a sight of desperate flight that lacked any visible cause for alarm. The first 2 bodies, those of Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko, were discovered at the edge of the forest, beneath a towering cedar tree. They were found barefoot and dressed only in their underwear. The branches of the old cedar were broken up to a height of 5 meters, suggesting one of them had frantically tried to climb it, perhaps to get a better view of the camp or to escape something on the ground. At the base of the tree, the remains of a small, hastily built fire were found. It was clear they had fought desperately to stave off the lethal cold, but their efforts were futile. Their hands were scraped raw, their bodies showing the initial stages of hypothermia. But the cause of death was not merely the cold. The expressions frozen on their faces were ones of sheer terror, a silent testament to the horror they had witnessed in their final moments. The scene posed more questions than answers. Why had they been so minimally dressed? What were they trying to see from the top of the tree? The discovery of these first victims only deepened the mystery, painting a grim picture of their last desperate struggle against an unseen, terrifying adversary. 3 more bodies were found shortly after, positioned between the cedar tree and the abandoned tent, their locations suggesting they had been attempting a desperate return to the shelter they had so hastily fled. Igor Dyatlov, the group's leader, was found clutching a single birch branch, his posture frozen in a state of grim determination. Zenaida Kolmogorova's body was discovered nearby, her face covered in blood. Though there were no clear signs of a violent struggle, Rustam Slobodin was found with a fractured skull, an injury that baffled investigators as it was not consistent with a simple fall. All 3 were better dressed than the pair by the cedar, but still inadequately prepared for the extreme cold. It appeared they had succumbed to hypothermia while fighting their way back up the slope, a final, heroic effort that ultimately failed. Their tragic end seemed to be a grim but understandable consequence of their panicked flight. However, the subsequent discoveries would shatter this illusion, revealing a far more sinister and violent dimension to the tragedy, proving that the cold was not the only killer on that mountain. Their deaths were just the beginning of the horrifying puzzle. It was not until the snow began to thaw 2 months later that the remaining 4 hikers were found, their discovery turning a perplexing tragedy into a case of high strangeness and unimaginable horror. They were located in a makeshift snow den dug into a ravine, a desperate final attempt at shelter. These 4, Nicholas Thibaut Brignolel, Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolevatov, and Semyon Zolotaryov, had suffered injuries that were nothing short of catastrophic. Lyudmila was missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lip. Nicholas's skull had been crushed with immense force. Semyon had a massive gaping wound in his chest, with several ribs shattered. The forensic examiner, Dr. Boris Vozrojdeny, stated that the force required to inflict such injuries was equivalent to that of a car crash. Crucially, he noted that these devastating wounds had no corresponding external trauma. There were no bruises or soft tissue damage, as if they had been crushed by an immense invisible pressure. This physical evidence defied all conventional explanations, pushing the incident into the realm of the truly inexplicable. A bear attack was ruled out, as there were no animal tracks and the bodies were not mauled in a typical predatory fashion. The mystery deepened further with the discovery of radiation. Several of the hikers Clothing items were found to be emitting unusually high levels of radiation. The source of this contamination was never identified. It was a bizarre, out-of-place clue in a case already overflowing with them. Was it connected to the strange lights? Other hikers and members of the local Mansi tribe had reported seeing strange, glowing orange spheres in the sky in that very area during the same period. The official investigation, conducted under the tight control of the Soviet authorities, was abruptly and inconclusively closed. The final report cited the cause of death as a compelling, natural force that the hikers were unable to overcome. This vague and unsatisfying conclusion did little to quell the rampant speculation. It seemed to be a deliberate attempt to bury the case, to hide a truth that was either too terrifying or too politically sensitive to be revealed. The case files were classified and hidden away in a secret archive, leaving the families of the victims and the public with a permanent, gnawing sense of uncertainty and suspicion. The truth of what happened on the Mountain of the Dead was officially erased, but the story refused to die. Over the decades, the Dyatlov Pass Incident has become a modern myth, a cornerstone of unexplained mysteries, attracting a legion of amateur sleuths and professional investigators. Theories range from the plausible to the wildly speculative. Some suggest an avalanche was the cause, but the evidence doesn't fully support this. The tent was not completely buried, and the hikers' tracks were visible, which wouldn't be the case after a significant snowslide. Furthermore, an avalanche wouldn't explain the horrific internal injuries or the missing tongue. Other theories propose an attack by local Mansi tribesmen, but this was quickly dismissed as there were no signs of a struggle, and the Mansi were known to be peaceful. The idea of a military experiment gone wrong has gained significant traction. The presence of radiation and the reports of strange lights in the sky could point to the testing of a secret weapon. Perhaps the hikers stumbled upon something they were not meant to see and were eliminated in a way that was designed to look like a natural accident. This theory would also explain the secretive nature of the official investigation and the subsequent cover-up by the Soviet government. Then there are the more esoteric explanations, the ones that venture into the realm of the paranormal and ufology. The strange orange spheres reported in the area have led many to believe that the hikers had a close encounter with an unidentified flying object. Could the intense radiation and the bizarre, crush-like injuries have been the result of an encounter with an extraterrestrial technology? Another popular theory revolves around the concept of infrasound. This is sound at a frequency so low it is inaudible to the human ear, but at high enough intensities, it can induce feelings of intense panic, dread, and nausea. Could a natural phenomenon, such as a specific wind pattern interacting with the local topography, a Kármán vortex street, have generated a powerful infrasound wave that drove the hikers mad with irrational fear, causing them to flee their tent and succumb to the elements? This could explain their panicked state but falls short of explaining the devastating physical trauma suffered by the last 4 victims. The sheer violence of their injuries remains the central, unyielding enigma of the case. The story of the 9 hikers who perished on Kolatyakal is more than just an unsolved mystery. It is a chilling reminder of the unknown. It's a testament to the fact that there are forces in this world that defy our understanding, phenomena that operate outside the neat confines of our scientific knowledge. The incident serves as a stark warning that the wilderness holds secrets far older and more powerful than human comprehension. The missing tongue, the crushed ribs with no external signs of impact, the radioactive clothing, the final terrifying flight from the safety of their tent. These are not the hallmarks of a simple tragedy. They are the fragmented pieces of a narrative that is fundamentally alien to our experience. The story endures not just because it is unsolved, but because it is so profoundly unsettling. It taps into a primal fear, the fear of a powerful, unseen, and malevolent force that can strike without warning or reason, leaving behind only riddles wrapped in ice and silence. The mountain keeps its secrets, and the spirits of the Dyatlov group remain frozen in time, their silent screams echoing through the desolate pass. If you find these journeys into the unknown as compelling as I do, consider subscribing to Mr. Tenebris. We delve into the shadows of history to uncover the stories that have been forgotten or ignored. Every new subscriber helps us to continue our search for the truth, no matter how disturbing it may be. The evidence in this case, from the bizarre state of the bodies to the official cover-up, suggests that what happened on that mountain was not an accident. It was an event that points to a reality far stranger and more terrifying than we are comfortable admitting. The details are too specific, too violent, too contrary to logic to be dismissed as mere happenstance. The case files may have been closed, but the investigation in the court of public opinion continues, fueled by the unsettling feeling that the official story is a lie designed to conceal an unthinkable truth. The Dyatlov Pass Incident is a perfect storm of mystery, a convergence of high strangeness that resists any single simple explanation. Each theory, from infrasound to secret military tests, seems to explain one piece of the puzzle while simultaneously contradicting another. The avalanche theory fails to account for the internal injuries. The military theory doesn't fully explain why the hikers were allowed to wander into a secret test zone. The paranormal theories, while tantalizing, lack concrete evidence. It is this resistance to a neat conclusion that gives the story its enduring power. It forces us to confront the limits of our own knowledge and to accept that some events may forever lie beyond our grasp. The fate of Igor Dyatlov and his companions is a chilling mosaic of terror, and as we leave the frozen slopes of the Ural Mountains, we carry with us the unsettling weight of their unanswered questions. A cold that seeps deeper than any winter wind. The silence that now blankets Kholat is not one of peace, but of a story unfinished, a horror unresolved.